Thank you so much for staying on with us here on News Tonight on GHOne Television. My name is Joshua Kojo-Mensah. The details now. And Minister Designate for the Sanitation Ministry, Lydia Seyram Al-Hassan, became emotional when a question about the violence that occurred during the AASU West Wogon by-election in 2019 was asked. Answering questions from members of the committee, the Minister Designate recounted how she was welcomed into Parliament by her colleagues after that by-election, which nearly moved into tears. But the chairman of the committee, the appointments committee, Joseph Osei-Wusu, stepped in to help her.
Mr. Chairman, the incident that happened on 31st January 2019 is unfortunate. Mr. Chairman, as a candidate whose focus was to win an election and support the voiceless, the underprivileged, and support my constituency, my intention of doing that was not to win through violence. As you are aware, I was nowhere near where the incident occurred. We all remember how I was received the first day I stepped foot into Parliament. A woman who was in pain, a woman who was grieving.
It's okay, take it cool, These are emotional matters, so take it cool.
So that's a very emotional Member of Parliament for the AASU West Wogon constituency. Now, Warrant Officer Class 1 with the Ghana Armed Forces, Emmanuel Hayford Afedo, and 3 others said to be members of the Western Togoland Restoration Front and Homeland Study Group have been jailed 17 years by the High Court in Accra. In addition to the custodial sentence, the 4 have been fined a total of 26,400 cedis after they were found guilty of charges including being members of a prohibited organization before Justice Mary Mami Ekwe Yanzu. The convicts are Michael Koku Kwablan, A. Gohe, Nene Kweku Ablom II, Dreke Mawena Abednego, and WO1 Emmanuel Hayford Afedo. They were convicted for being members of a prohibited organization, making contributions for the benefit of a prohibited organization, summoning meeting of a prohibited organization, attending meeting of a prohibited organization, and participation in a campaign of a prohibited organization. Before sentencing, Justice Mary Yanzu said she took into consideration mitigation from defense lawyers, including the members of 7 years spent on remand. Justice Mary Yanzu, in handing down the sentence, said the punishment ought to serve as a deterrent to others who may have the intention of embarking on such an adventure. Meanwhile, lawyer for the convicted Togoland members, Andrew Kujo Votia, says his clients have instructed him to appeal against the sentence, and he spoke to EIB Network Legal Affairs correspondent Mutala Inusa after the judgment.
Maximum sentence allowed under this Western Togo land issue is just 5 years, and the convicts have spent 3 years 6 months in custody. And the law is clear under Article 46 of the Constitution that any day or week or month spent in custody, in lawful custody, or in this instance they were in lawful custody without bail. So the judge ought to have factored the 3 years 6 months that they spent in lawful custody out of the 5 years that the law allows as the maximum punishment. Now you sentence them to 4 years, 4 years, and 5 years. A1 having the maximum 5 years. So if this is not harsh and excessive, I don't know what to be harsh and excessive under this law. The law allows the convicted persons to seek an appeal if they are dissatisfied or disgruntled about the judgment given. And I think I share their view, that I should go up for them. The law allows that.
They have
instantly. But considering the fact that maximum years is 5 years, they spent 3 years 6 months, and they were given 4 years. And in addition to fine, of 1,000 penalty units. That's about 12,000 Ghana cedis. You see, I have been advocating for non-considered sentence all this while. That's why in the case of Toto vs. Republic, Jasaparo said it, that first offenders should be treated leniently vis-a-vis habitual offenders. He said it clearly that if there's an option of a fine, judges should try and go on the fine instead of custodial sentences. The court has spoken, so until we go on appeal, it stands.
So on Insights tonight, Member of Parliament for Ningo Prampram and lead proponent for the Anti-Gay Bill, Samuel Nortey George, is accusing President Akufo-Addo of questioning the sovereignty of Parliament and passing laws following his decision to hold on with assenting to the controversial bill. President Akufo-Addo, at a meeting of diplomats on Monday, said he is holding on to assenting to the bill due to a pending case against its other Supreme Court. But speaking on the floor of Parliament today, the legislator took the president on for taking that decision. Let's take a listen.
Are we proud of our democracy? Because, Mr. Speaker, when the president looks at us as a nation and tells us that he is more concerned about the so-called friends of Ghana, and for that reason, the sovereignty of this parliament is being called into question relative to the family values bill that we have passed. Mr. Speaker, I am truly worried the kinds of friends the president keeps. Because the president, Mr. Speaker, my friends will not blackmail me. My friends will not blackmail me with money. So if we are being told that today, and if you read the president's statement, he says that he is giving the friends of Ghana assurance that he is not going to hasten to assent to a bill that this sovereign parliament has passed on representing the will of the Ghanaian people. Mr. Speaker, it leaves me with just one quote that I am going to read with your permission from Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey says, "The Negro who lives on the patronage of philanthropists is the most dangerous member of our black society, because he is willing to turn back the clock of progress when his benefactors ask him to do so. If the Negro is not careful, he will drink in all the poison of modern civilization and die from the effects of it." Mr. Speaker, let us urge our president to be mindful of cultural imperialism.
Honourable Member, your time is up.
Meanwhile, the Minister-designate for Tourism, Andrew Ejapamesa, says if President Akufo-Addo goes ahead to assent to the bill, it will affect Ghana's tourism potential. According to him, the bill, if it becomes law, will ward off tourists. He was speaking during his vetting by the Appointments Committee on Tuesday.
Our culture, ultimately. And so if people want to experience our culture, it really shouldn't matter whether we are opposed to a certain lifestyle within our cultural setting. But it all comes down to how you promote Ghana and position ourselves within the law, that is, if His Excellency the President assents to it. Okay, so I know it's the most topical subject matter now. Indeed, yesterday I was having conversations with my brother and some friends of mine at home, and it came up what your response would be when this question is posed to you. But I still haven't figured out an answer. But all I can say is that it definitely will have an impact one way or the other. Some people who believe that lifestyle should be allowed everywhere may find Ghana not an attractive place. Some people who believe in our culture would find Ghana an attractive place. And so it all comes down to how you market Ghana and what it is that we offer to the world. The listing that we have, that we are encouraging people to visit our country as opposed to others.
Meanwhile, private legal practitioner and broadcaster Richard Delasky has filed a process on the Supreme Court seeking to, among others, restrain the president from assenting to the Human Sexual Rights and Family Values Bill. A copy of the writ dated 5th of March 2024 and available to GHOne News, lists 8 reliefs sought by Mr. Sky. My colleague Mutala Inusa, who is also our legal affairs correspondent, is here to tell us more about the reliefs being sought by the broadcaster. So Mutala, we have 8 reliefs being sought by Richard de la Sky. Walk us through those reliefs.
Absolutely. So earlier today at 1 p.m. this afternoon, Richard de la Sky filed this very writ at the Supreme Court, and like you rightly indicated, he is seeking some 8 reliefs, and out of the 8 reliefs, 4 of them are declarations that he is seeking from the Supreme Court by way of some constitutional interpretation, and the remaining 4 is in relation to some orders that he is seeking from the Supreme Court. Let me walk you through briefly what his reliefs are in relation to this very case that has been found. The first relief that he's seeking is that if you look at upon proper and true interpretation of provisions in the Constitution, clearly Article 33(5) of the Constitution, and also in the light of Article 12(1)(2) and 5(1) and 17(1), it says that if you look at Parliament on 28th of February, as it were, passed this very bill, contravene the Constitution, and it is that it should be null, void, and of no legal effect. So that is what he's seeking from the Supreme Court. And another one is also relief 2, is that if the Speaker of Parliament contravened Article 108A and II of the 1932 Constitution of the Republic of Ghana by admitting and allowing Parliament to proceed upon and passing the bill, this, he says, imposes, or as it were, into law, as the same imposes a charge upon the consolidated fund or other public funds of Ghana. So that is the second rule. Then the third declaration that he is seeking, so that Parliament clearly exceeded its authority under Article 106 and 108A in passing the bill, as the same imposes a charge upon the consolidated fund or other public funds of Ghana. Then the very last of the declarations that he is seeking is the fact that upon true and proper interpretation of these provisions, Parliament lacked the requisite quorum to pass the bill. So he's also raising the issue about the quorum of Parliament. He said Parliament lacked the requisite quorum to pass the bill. Now, I venture into the area of the orders that he's seeking from the Apex Court. And the first one is an order restraining Parliament, Speaker of Parliament, and the Clerk of Parliament from presenting the bill to the Presidency for him to sign. It said Parliament should be restrained and the Clerk of Parliament should be restrained. The relief 6 is also talking about a restraining order to the President from assenting to the bill. So one is a Parliament should be restrained from sending the bill to the Presidency, and when the President even coincidentally should he receive this particular bill, he shouldn't sign. So that is the sixth relief that he's actually seeking from the Supreme Court. And Joshua, look at this one. An injunction barring any attempt to enforce the provisions of this bill, particularly those criminalizing same-sex relationship and related advocacy efforts. So that is a very strong one, they're seeking an injunction. And so the very last one that he's talking about is such further orders or directions as to this honorable court may deem fit. So these are the reliefs that Richard Sky this afternoon has per the writ that was sent to the Supreme Court, is asking the Supreme Court to, as it were, grant him 4 declarations and 4 orders. So we'll see in the coming days what the directive of the Supreme Court will be, and in particular when it has to do with constitutional provision. If there is a rival meanings with respect to the interpretation of constitutional matter, it is the Supreme Court that has the original jurisdiction to interpret that provision. That is why Richard Sky is before the Apex Court for interpretation regarding these provisions in the 1992 Constitution.
Quite interesting, and like you rightly segmented for us, we have 4 interpretations as well as 4 declarations that he's seeking, 4 declarations and then 4 orders that he's seeking from the Supreme Court. And we know that President Akufo-Addo says that because of a process at the Supreme Court, he's unable to assent to the bill as it stands now until the determination of that case. So Absolutely. Let's get on Zoom now and have further conversation on this development. Clement Akolo has joined us. He's Communications Officer of Parliamentary Network Africa, PN Africa, and he's joined us on the phone lines now. Clement, thank you so much for your time this evening.
Thank you too, my brother.
Great. So as it stands now, this is where we are with the bill, and I'd like to start from the issues raised by the Ningo Prom MP Sam George in Parliament today. He says that the president's refusal to assent to the bill as it stands now is basically putting into question the sovereignty of Parliament. From where you sit, you've been monitoring how the legislative arm of government works. Exactly what will be your thoughts on that?
Yeah, thank you very much, my brother. I tend to agree with Honorable Sam George if he says that the president's pronouncement actually seems to put the legislature under the judiciary in some way, because the legislative arm has actually gone through the process to deal with this bill right from beginning to end. So, and the Constitution states how the bills are supposed to deal with and are supposed to be dealt with, and then when it gets to the president, what the president has to do. After that, then whatever consequences will come after it. But now the president seems to be putting the cart before the horse, and is trying to say that until the reliefs that are being sought at the court is dealt with, then whatever has gone on so far cannot be proceeded with, which I tend to disagree with that particular process, because we think that we should allow the separation of powers to work properly, and the process should be completed before the president will now accede the authority to the judiciary to go ahead with the other processes.
So even in the case where the president has not received the bill from Parliament as it stands now, because that's what we are told, that his office has not received the bill from Parliament.
Yeah, so it's interesting that the president has not received this particular bill, but he has gone ahead to make pronouncements that could be injurious to the bill in the first place. So it means that the president is preparing a path to actually kill the bill, or to ensure that the bill does not see the light of day, which I find a bit unfortunate. And also, it's also interesting that my very good friend Richard Sky has gone to court, and I know that he is seeking to actually ensure that the laws of this country work, and then see a particular procedure go through. But when I was listening to your news, your colleague indicated that it was this afternoon that the writ was actually filed, but we know that the president yesterday indicated that the process was going through, which means that he had a foreknowledge of what was going to happen today.
Right.
That is a bit interesting that it had to happen that way. We don't want to believe that it's an arrangement not to ensure that the bill see the light of day.
Very well. Clement, thank you. Thank you so much for engaging with us this evening. That's Clement Akolo. He is Communications Officer of PN Africa, having that conversation with us. But what we also do know is that this particular issue has generated a lot of conversation on social media. And to help me bring your thoughts on social media to life, Nanama Akwa has joined me with all your thoughts on social media. Nana, so what are they saying on social media?
Good evening, Joshua. Well, we are going to pick a little from those that are what we call maybe famous, or who have a presence on social media regarding the president not assenting to the bill just yet. So we start with Oliver Barker Vomoor. He says, case closed, or asking, Nana Addo has decided not to sign the bill. Then we have Lydia Forson. One wants to build a cathedral. The other is using resources to pass a bill for proper human sexual rights and Ghanaian family. All this religious and moral showdown, yet we're in a den of thieves. What's the title of this movie? She's asking. Then we have Richard De La Sky, who is the one who took the case to the Supreme Court. Still under siege from recently introduced new taxes, are Ghanaians ready for a new dose of taxes to fill the yawning funding deficit the Anti-Gay Bill is likely to unleash, as many Western donors move to turn off the taps on lifeline budgetary support? The numbers look mad, he said. Then Jatta George was responding to Richard De La Sky sending the writ there. He said, "Dear Richard De La Sky, I have seen and read your writ. A lot of fluff, but the substance is your prayer to the Supreme Court to stop Akufo-Addo from assenting to the Human Sexual Rights and Family Values Bill 2024. It would be interesting as we follow submissions in the court. Ama Governor says I should say hi." Then Austin Wood says President Akufo-Addo has already written to Parliament saying he won't sign any private member's bill passed by Parliament that imposes incarceration, which puts financial obligations on the Consolidated Fund. President Akufo-Addo won't sign the anti-LGBTQ bill in its current form. Then we have here Sammy Gyamfi. His tweet is quite lengthy, but I want to take the last couple of paragraphs just here. The MPP pretended to support the anti-LGBTQI bill in the open, only to stab the Christian community, Muslim community, traditional authorities and Ghanaians at large in the back. Shame on President Akufo-Addo, his complicit vice Alhaji Bawumia and the entire MPP for toying with the values of our nation and the future of our children. The scales are off, he says. Ghanaians now know who the real gay lobbyists are. Well, as for me, I would like to hear from Ama Governor, but I'm not sure I will. My name is Nana Akwa. Joshua, back to you.
Many thanks to you, Nana, for telling us exactly what people are saying on social media. Quite a mix of interesting conversations there. But the controversy we know surrounding the recently passed anti-gay bill concerning individual freedoms and societal values may not dwindle soon. As critics argue, parts of the bill raises concerns about its vagueness. Now, the true intent of its sponsors are queried on whether the bill is an attempt to police citizens' sexuality or promote human sexual rights and family values. We see Dede Jange breaks down some aspects of the bill in this explainer.
If you're a person who identifies as a lesbian, a gay, bisexual, transgender, transsexual, an ally, a pansexual, or a person of any other sexual orientation contrary to the social-cultural relationship between a male and a female, then you're probably unhappy with the passage of the anti-gay bill. The bill goes on to mention names involved in the promotion, propagation, advocacy for, support, or funding of LGBTQAP+, as well as persons who provide or participate in the provision of sex or gender reassignment. The bill may seem to only restrict activities of persons in the gay community, but here's the part that most of us haven't paid attention to, because parts of the bill have come under scrutiny for its vagueness, raising concerns over the actual intent of its sponsors. For instance, the bill touches on the prohibition of gross indecency, where a person who publicly and willfully does a grossly indecent act with the same sex commits a misdemeanor and is liable on a summary conviction to not less than 6 months and not more than 1 year imprisonment. Now, if you're wondering what constitutes a grossly indecent act, it is basically being chummy or friendly with a person of the same sex. Yes, the bill calls this a public show of romantic relations between or among persons of the same sex. By what measure is an action deemed romantic? A prolonged hug, a compliment from the same sex, or perhaps unceasing touching? The bill also criminalizes the public show of romantic relations between or among persons if one or more of the persons have undergone gender or sex reassignment. The bill also criminalizes the intentional cross-dressing to portray that the person is of a gender different from the gender at birth. Does this mean the male creatives who dress like women to push their craft will be in trouble if the bill is passed? Let's not delve into the need to clarify why the use of sex toys are forbidden in this bill, because who is to determine the appropriateness of what goes on in the privacy of consenting adults? This is not all. Aside the prohibition of an adoption order or fosterage for LGBTQ+ persons, allies will also not be allowed this privilege. In this context, an ally means a person who produces, procures, markets, broadcasts, publishes, or distributes materials with the intent to promote an activity prohibited under this bill. This begs another question. Is it an attempt by government to police its citizens' sexuality or actually promote human sexual rights and family values bill? For GHOne News, Awisi Dede Jange.
All right, so let the conversation continue on social media at GHOne TV. That's it for Insight this evening. Now, in an evolving world of political campaigns, slogans have taken prominence among political parties to convey their policies to the electorate. Ghana has had its share of fanciful slogans from political parties since independence. But what impact does the use of slogans have on the electorate and the campaign strategies of parties? Samuel Nyigmagbo explores that.
NDC no Ababa say, and then after that you do.
In the early 1950s, at the height of nationalism, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah coined the slogan, "Self-government now," to rally the indigenous people to advocate for independence. Despite counter-slogans from the opposition UGCC, majority of the people resonated with Nkrumah's slogan, an ideology helping him capture political power and independence for Ghana. Fast forward after the Second Republic, during the military regime of Ignatius Kutu Echampong, another popular slogan emerged, Operation Feed Yourself. Even though it was a military regime, most Ghanaians found solace in the slogan, which communicated self-dependence and reliance on local production. In recent history, the slogans have assumed even more prominence in political activities. From 2000 to 2008, the NPP invented several slogans including positive change, the golden age of business, and addressing the then President John Ejikun Kufuor, the moniker gentle giant, to keep him in power. The NDC, having realized the power of slogans, matched the NPP in 2008 with slogans such as Eyezu Eyeza, Adipa Ofioye, and selling the then NDC presidential candidate John Evans Atta Mills as Asundwehene contribute to their win over the NPP. Political marketer at the University of Ghana, Professor Kobi Mensah, says slogans do not determine an election, but they help in the recall of political parties and their ideologies. He says when mixed with songs, slogans become more powerful and easy to resonate with.
The songs that are backed with, they sort of, they mesh it with a song. They put it in the song form. And in the African tradition, songs or music is very much basic to our way of life. And so it enhances the recall and it makes people much more adaptable to it, in terms of their political choices. It may not necessarily lead you to vote a particular party or for a particular candidate, because obviously so many factors goes into it. The preparation to vote, that's where it is.
However, some critics have argued that slogans from political parties are mere empty promises meant to sway voters. Former President John Dramani Mahama in 2020 called out the government for using what he termed as fanciful slogans.
So the problems facing our country and the solutions to them cannot be reduced to a handful of fancy slogans and poorly conceived and implemented half measures aimed at obtaining short-lived political gratification, only to have them inflict deeper socioeconomic wounds on our country and leave more problems than they resolve. And so when elections are coming, it's free SHS. Next election, Agenda 111. Our problems go beyond this sloganeering.
However, former Trade and Industries Minister under the John Mahama administration, Ekos Pio Gabra, said even the NDC do not understand its slogans to compete with the NPP.
And I also tell them that the Eyezu Eyeza, which you heard today, I don't know what it means. Someone asked them, what does it mean? Most people don't know what it means. Eyezu Eyeza, Zuzuz are nice slogans, but not any real meaning. So we used to have a hey job, and I ask people that you are in a position, you are saying a hey job, do you know what it means? And they are saying about the hey job, meaning things are cool. And meantime, you are hot, you are struggling. So hey job, at all.
But political marketer Kobi Mensah says slogans only become ineffective when they are not delivered, making them a reference point for the failures of a government.
The same manner that you expect people to recall the policy in their preparation to vote, the same manner that they will use it to recall the delivery. All right. So when you fail to deliver, then it becomes a problem. All right. And that's where they can sharply remember your failure. And that's why I argue that perhaps it is much more easier for people to remember and recognize the failures of this government than the previous government, because everything, like you're saying, every policy was given a certain slogan to aid recall.
Some Ghanaians, however, contend that slogans do not influence their voting pattern. They say slogans from political parties do not move them again, as they have heard many in the past without actual delivery.
Slogans have long been used within the political landscape of Ghana. In the previous elections in 2016, slogans were an integral part of why the NPP won the 2016 elections. But the question remains, are voters really moved by these slogans used by political parties, policies, or they vote otherwise?
I'm not moved by slogans per se, but for some of us, we are able to process information. So if you tell me 24-hour economy, I will want to find out how deep is that one. Do Ghana really need 24-hour economy? Because I think our foundations are bad. So me, at times when the politicians talk, I just believe they really don't know what they are talking about.
Slogans do not move some of us. You know, in this world, we all have our perceptions. Some people move by the slogans, others to look at what's happening on the ground. You know, there are issues happening on the ground. So if you are basing on slogans and what have you to vote, then you are not being patriotic.
But omoba yehunu hwe otiaze omoka but omoba yehudo so omoye bidie but nyene nyina na omede omoye sisi anu ye pe asumwie ene nyoma ba ma oman na yede etumpon ene yede ye pe se sisi anu ensaka ntine ne omoka so omoba na so mbaye dia ye to abana yede ade amon.
People keep saying a lot of things. This one come say this, they don't do it and stuff. So I actually don't get moved by those things.
Slogans may be losing their relevance in political activities in Ghana, especially when governments fail to deliver on them. But as the 2024 elections draw near, be ready to hear a lot of mouth-watering slogans. Reporting for GHOne News, Samuel Nimago.
You're still watching News Tonight right here on GHOne Television. Let's go for a breather. When we return, we do have more for you. Kindly stay. Well, let's do some rather sad story this evening. At least 5 apartments have been destroyed in a fire disaster near the Malamata market in the AASU Central Municipality of the Greater Accra region. The situation has rendered several residents homeless, with properties worth thousands of cedis consumed by the fire. Even though personnel of the Ghana Fire Service rushed to the scene to help douse the flames, the damage was severe. Abdul Hanan Adam, he was in the area and he reports.
We understand that the fire started at about between the hours of 11 and 11:30. These residents are trying to salvage some of the damaged items from the inferno. We understand that about 4 apartments here have been damaged, severely damaged. We're trying to find out from them what exactly happened, because information that we picked up indicate that the fire started as a result of a faulty meter, and as to whether this is true or not, we are yet to establish. So let me engage one of the affected residents to find out what happened. Good afternoon, boss.
Afternoon.
So tell us briefly what happened.
A lot of sudden, I just get a call. You understand me? As I get a call, I even confused. Before coming, the area boys came around helping, you know. But the fire is too much hot. The fire is too much.
What was the cause of the fire? What was the cause?
That one actually we don't know. I think the thing was started small. Coming before they realized the fire was up.
Where was it from? Is it as a result of a faulty meter, like we are made to believe, or is from, something else?
Yeah, someone was saying is the fault from the meter. I think the new meter they brought, I think there is no switch or something. That is what they are saying. Yeah.
Hey,
Anya de asema to ye yo ye wo ha eja to ye fie asipoto efie na sigilebe nu ni oye niama ye bibi asi ye sika ye bibi ala o abayon be bua ye yo akufu adu on be hwe ye no be bua ye brother ye bibi asi ye bibi a metiwe hwe matali eni we pe na aka wo me hu o bibi asi daddy
na ejano de na ekose
ejano di ye nima de kura jani ye den e ba ye say ye see ye wo hanye hu se jana to fie nim light off ni dosu ye be ma ye prepared no mo di aba no na eja na ba no prepared no mo di aba bla ha ye shi na bla ha say prepared no ma be chicha ye use ye meter ba ku no ye ti mi sisa meter ye mo ya mane ye o wo fie ani aba se be sisa meter almost say na go problem when you na aba no
na say o say abanye dem ma
aban me boa ye kufu ado no na eto aba ma no
da kwan bensu na opese obo
o say
kwan bensu na opese
say ye nyema ahye o me hwe ye dan ne ma ye eni ye sika asai o me boa ye ne ye mobo ene ba bi e be da kura ye nibi ye nim ba bi eja ne fi ena obi aso ndi fie ye hu ya say eja ye den eja to fie nim.
So those are some reactions from some of the affected people. They are saying that they do not know what actually caused the fire. All they know is that they were out there conducting their business, and people called them to come home because there was an inferno here. And some of them are blaming the situation on intermittent power outages that has been happening for quite some time in this area. Maybe the cause of the fire. Reporting for GHOne News, Abdelhanan Adam, Malata Market.
Well, quite an unfortunate incident there, but let's do business now. Now, the Executive Secretary of the Public Utilities Regulatory Authority, Dr. Ishmael Aka, has shut down claims by independent power generators that a reduction in electricity tariffs will lead to debt in the energy sector. According to Dr. Aka, the IPGs are only looking at the exchange rate, which is one of 4 variables that determine the decision of tariffs increment. He therefore urged stakeholders to rather assist the Electricity Company of Ghana recoup its debt at the sector, as the adjustment is in the best interest of both service providers and consumers. He made the comments at the first policy dialogue to mark the World Sustainable Energy Day here in Accra.
Case, when you look at the tariff that was announced, there were 2 things. One of them was that the Commission decided to merge some of the banks. Now, in merging the banks, it makes mimicking the tariff on the meters easier. So it makes the work of the utilities easy to configure their meters. And again, it also makes meters cheaper, because when the meters are not that complicated, they are cheaper to acquire. The second thing is that because the banks were merged, you see some of the banks going up, because we have about, let's say, 4 banks, and we are bringing them to a middle ground. So those that were higher above the threshold, they will experience some reduction. But those that were below the threshold will experience some an increase. So what happened is that when you look at the lifeline, when you look at the low voltage customers, when you look at some other like the mines, they did not experience any change. However, some residential customers are getting a reduction. And we also see some classes like the steel companies increasing as much as 35%. So while there have been a reduction in some areas, we've seen an increase in other areas. And this will help pay for the reduction in the residential sector. That's the first one. The second thing is the tariff depends on, the quarterly adjustment depends on 4 main factors. And all these 4 factors come together to help the utilities to get their revenue requirements. So the IPPs, the Chamber of IPPs were just looking at the exchange rates. But we've seen that hydro is increasing. So we've got additional 150 gigawatt hours of hydro coming in. We also saw inflation reducing from 40 to 2018. Now, when you consider all these factors, then there will be some windfall which should be shared with consumers. The final part I would say is that increasing tariffs does not automatically lead to payment of debt or payment to act.
Well, lecturer and energy analyst at the Institute of Oil and Gas Studies of the University of Cape Coast, Dr. Shafi San has joined us for a conversation on this. Doc, thank you so much for joining us. So what basically is the correlation between the tariffs and, of course, the energy sector, the debts that have been accumulated in that sector?
Thank you very much. And basically, the tariffs are what are used to pay the debt, basically. So, I mean, the higher tariffs you get or the higher tariffs you are able to charge and actually collect from the consumer, the more you are able to pay all the IPPs and also pay for the final cost of power in Ghana. Basically, that's the relationship. So if you are able to get increased tariff, it means that you are going to increase the monetary collection base that you are going to use to pay for the power that is being generated. So that's the correlation. More tariff, more less debt, basically. More tariff collected, less debt in the power markets.
So as it stands now, we have a situation where the independent power generators say that the reduction in tariff is basically going to worsen the plight in terms of the indebtedness of the energy sector. Do they have a case?
Yes, strongly. I see that they have a very good case because at the same time that there's been this quarter tariff adjustment, which in this case is a decrease in tariff adjustment, automatically, I mean, the cost of gas, which the IPPs buy in dollars, which is currently at $8.8 per MMCF, is in dollars. It's charged in dollars, and the cedi to dollar rate has actually depreciated. I mean, there are other variables that they also consider aside just the cedi to dollar rates that is currently depreciating. So they have cost components that have not really seen any significant decrease. So if you are decreasing the tariff, it should be a key concern to them because as at now, I mean, you are just signaling them that you are going to reduce tariff. It means that their probability of getting their capital cost or cost of generating power is lower. That's why they are concerned. And I'm sure I strongly agree with them from that point, even though I have my own reservations from the point of the consumer as well, because this is the only time the consumer could also benefit. As I said, it's just not only the IPGs that are in the power sector in Ghana. We have other stakeholders, including the consumers. So if for all this while power tariffs have been going up, and there's been a significant generation from hydro, and then there's also been a significant improvement in the macroeconomy, that's inflation reducing from 52 or 54% to they are even using a higher inflation rate to calculate the tariff. That's 28%. We are currently having about 23% inflation rate. So at least the consumer, and from what the PRC executive secretary is saying, it's not even all consumers that are getting the reduction in tariff. There are some specific consumers that are still going to get a higher tariff compared to some other group or bank, as he says, because the banks just indicates the group of consumers that are within the power market. So for the 0 to 30 kilowatt hour bank consumers, they are going to get a significantly higher tariff because that's the lifeline consumers. Because previously, the very higher tariff band, that's the 600 and above, they were subsidizing power for the lifeline consumers. But for now, they are taking that out because the 600 kilowatt hour consumers and above are now going to get a lower tariff because they are taking the subsidy they were doing for the lifeline consumers. So generally, the reduction or the adjustment downward is not favoring even all the consumers. So for the IPGGs, they have a case because they are going to have a lower base to actually collect their final cost of power.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure engaging you on such matters. Now, still talking about the energy sector, printing press operators at Accra New Town are urging government to prioritize dealing with the erratic power supply. The operators lament destroyed equipment caused by power outages. Now, there's more in the following reports by Calvin Powell.
The recent power outages that plague the country
I am right at Newtown, the printing press hub of Accra, to actually interact with business owners as to how this power outage is affecting their business. And to my utter surprise, the power is gone off again. Businesses in Accra Newtown are gradually crumbling under the impact of recent rampant power outages. Some have resorted to the use of generator sets in order to keep working around the clock. In an interaction with some printing press operators, they bemoaned the situation, urging government to roll out a timetable for them to plan well for their businesses to avoid financial wastage.
It's really a problem to us because almost every day there's light out. If not in the morning, then it's in the afternoon. And then it affects our work greatly because when you're using your machine to produce the job, especially the designers, when you're designing something and the power is off, you have to wait till it's in. And then unfortunately, when you didn't save the job that you are working on at that particular moment before the light is taken out, everything will just go. You have to restart and do all over again. Yeah, so it greatly affects us. And then also at the production side, when you are working on a product, let's say you are printing a t-shirt and there is light out, you have to stop. And sometimes to get the job spoiled. For Samuel Dogbe, his business is at the verge of collapsing, as most customers have deserted him for his inability to meet deadlines, causing disaffection between him and the clients.
It's really worrying us a lot because when sometimes you are printing a job for a client, let's say it's very long and you are printing it and the power goes off, you have to reprint it when the light comes back, and in that case it helps, like it makes you lose money, and at the same time your client may be having problem with you not delivering it on time.
Cold store operators also bear the brunt of the erratic power supply. According to them, they are compelled to dispose of their products often, as the inconsistent power melts the ice, making the products unwholesome.
Because say light no kofuma e be dru ala power but what's na we ni ayemre and am ni ayemre ha interest na e say business no e ma ne kofom am it me lose customers every like say o ma na say ayemre wo so bia be ka so mpe e bi mo be say access na say
light no e ko sa e ma enam no ai machine it management e ma enam no essay na e sa so e ma business kofom because nipa na beton nam na okọ na sa say about be complaining and I no just be outside man and I'm for na say like a cost a business by ma and I bas I say the musito na ma first na swati.
Consumers of electricity, especially business owners, are demanding government publish a timetable to allow them plan their lives around to avoid surprises that comes with irreparable costs.
Let's now bring you the latest in the world of sports.